Hello, friend. This is Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, a weekly live series provided by Lawyers Design School. And my name is Hannele Korhonen, and I'm the founder of Lawyers Design School. Today, I'm stoked to have Joey Gartner as a guest. He's the director and counsel for the ABA Center for Innovation, and he describes himself as a legal professional with a passion for innovation at the intersection of law and technology. Where with Joey, we're going to talk about emerging careers in legal and what role design thinking can have as a lawyer skill set. So, hello, Joey, and welcome.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me on. I'm thrilled to be here today.
Where are you joining from
So,
today?
so you're talking to me live from the beautiful ABA headquarters in Chicago, Illinois, on a surprisingly warm March 1st. We're in the 50s here today, which is a big deal for us this time of
Oh,
year.
that's cool. And getting ready for the ABA Tech Show.
Yeah, tech show is going to kick off tonight at 6:30. So we're going to have a full day starting here with you, going through our normal day and seeing our friends this evening at tech show as that gets started. So
Cool. So great to have you. But hey, let's get started. First, can you tell us a little about your background and story?
sure. Well, I think I was one of those people who kind of went to law school and early on kind of knew through law school, what I wanted to do, right? I was going to be a solo practitioner. I was going to hang out my shingle. I was going to be the general practitioner for a suburban town. Like that was it, right? That was the plan. And I wanted to do all those things. And graduated law school in 2010, had a great experience, went out, hung out a shingle. And within a year of that, kind of realized that I loved the business of law and I loved the business of growing law firms. But being in court every day and client matters were not the part of the job that really most fulfilled me, right? And so I started thinking a little bit differently about what I wanted to do and what I thought about and what my priorities were. And it kind of came to me that what I liked about running a business of law was the idea that you can innovate and iterate and adjust and build and tweak and find new ways to serve clients and find new ways to be more effective. And that was the part of the job that I was most passionate about. So after 5 years in kind of solo practice, I decided I was going to try to track a different route. And I went to a large national bankruptcy firm that was doing a lot of digital consultation work and was doing kind of a newer delivery model in terms of being a virtual firm, which, now post-COVID, we think about as its kind of second nature, but in 2015 was a pretty novel concept. And I worked there for a few years in a few operational roles, had the opportunity to kind of see how you operationalize and grow law firms and how the business side of it, as well as kind of learning how do you iterate, right? Okay, so we tried this and this wasn't an effective tool. So what do we do here? And then did that for a few other law firms, did that at a group legal services plan. And I believe it would have been November of 2020, because we were still under work from home and COVID and all sorts of things. I happened to find an opportunity at the American Bar Association with their Center for Innovation, which had kind of been a dream get for me, right? Because as someone who's kind of innovated outside the system for years and kind of been in that disruptor space, the ABA offered an opportunity to kind of educate and teach and help engage on topics of innovation, design thinking. How do we build sustainable law firms? And so jumped at the opportunity to come here. Since I know we have an international audience today, the American Bar Association is the largest the largest professional organization that is voluntary for lawyers in the United States. We have somewhere in the range of about 200,000 attorneys as members, which represents somewhere around 16% of the profession. And our specific role within the large ABA, which has, specialties on everything from litigation sections to IP law, but our little corner of the ABA is all about thinking about the future of the profession. And that really means three primary things. How do we innovate in terms of service models to provide better access to justice and truly increase the amount of access that we have for consumers in consumer legal, right? How do we go ahead and build more sustainable law firms for lawyers. So how can we help lawyers to not just enable technology to help them grow firms, but also think about growing their firms and think about sort of the future of the profession in a different way. And we also kind of want to serve as the one-stop clearinghouse for topics of innovation that rotate around the profession. So we have a ton of projects that touch on all sorts of things, such as data collection at a firm. So if you're thinking about an innovation, how do you track to make sure it's successful? What KPIs should you be thinking about, and how do they relate to each other, right? So kind of an intro to data analytics, all the way through a series that we do on, it's a 2-minute animated series we do on YouTube each month that talks about how do you use technology in your firm? So how do you automate your social media marketing, right? Things like that. So we have kind of a broad mission statement, but at the core of it is improving access in the legal system for consumers and improving law firm sustainability for lawyers.
Oh, that's so cool. And I can imagine that it was a dream come true for you, and thinking about the impact that you can now have with your current role.
Yeah, I mean, I think what drew me to the ABA is, having been in a disruptor space and innovation from the outside, I really jumped at the opportunity to have conversations with people about what innovation looks like and what it can be and what the possibilities are, and how, sure, there are things there are always ethical considerations, and there are always these concerns, and they're very important, and we need to make sure we consider those. But we also need to make sure we consider how we're thinking about the future of the profession. How are we engaged in a way that's going to be most effective for lawyers and consumers and allied professionals moving forward? Because at the end of the day, this is trust in the legal system is kind of a core value, right? It's a core value to rule of law issues. And so that is something that I think I've always taken very seriously, and had the opportunity to do that here in this setting has been truly a dream. And I would also be remiss if I didn't say, the Center for Innovation is a relatively new organization within the ABA. We were founded in 2017 out of the Future of the Profession Commission that was established under President William Hubbard and Judy Perry Martinez. And it's a great opportunity because we're young enough within the ABA that we get to iterate, right? So we also get to practice what we preach a little bit. And if we find that there's a better way to do something, there's a better way to build this web tool, there's a better series we can do that's going to engage with people, great, let's find it. And we love the collaboration side of it as well, right? I think one of the other big things that we're most interested in and passionate about is the opportunity to collaborate both internally within the ABA with some of the great leadership we have here, as well as externally with some of our partners like the National Center for State Courts and the Legal Services Corporation. Those are really good opportunities. So it's a great, fun job. No day is exactly the same. And I'm so glad you've invited us on, especially to talk about our emerging careers, because for me, at least, that's something I'm really passionate about, right? Is finding these alternative career pathways that exist in legal, because there are so many talented people, and maybe a partnership track is not the right fit for them, but that doesn't mean that there's not a home for them in the legal industry and the profession.
That's so important to talk about that. And I was so happy to find that when I was reading about the emerging careers from your website, that you actually kind of articulate that partner track is not for everybody, but there needs to be other paths for skilled legal professionals. Yeah. So important work.
And it's really interesting. I think about this from the perspective of, I'm in the middle of my career, right? I've been doing this for 12, 13 years now. So for me, I've been in the legal profession, but there are so many people in the legal profession who have been doing it for a few years, maybe 3 to 4 years, and don't really know what options are available to them and what are out there. And to be fair, if you are in a law firm setting, that is a high pressure environment, right? So for a lot of the time, you're not even thinking about the other options that might exist in legal, but you may be doing some of these things in your day-to-day practices and not even thinking about it, right? You may be innovating in ways that you're not even accounting for on a daily basis. Maybe it's in your client intake process. Maybe it's in how you do, maybe it has to do with data analytics and data analysis that you're doing on your own marketing trends, right? There's so many things you might be doing in a firm that you don't think about as innovative, but you do them every day, right? And that's sort of part of the mindset shift that I think is really important for growing this emerging career or the profession, is being open to the fact that you're more innovative than you think, probably.
100%. Were these some of the reasons why you created this? Because you have created this emerging career in legal toolkit in ABA. So what is that
Yeah.
about, and why did you create it?
So, this has always been something that personally I've been passionate about, but beyond that, the pandemic showed us some things about the profession that we maybe might not have seen otherwise, right? And one of those was that early career professional, and especially women, were leaving the profession and not coming back, right? And they were citing number of reasons for that, whether it was work-life balance dynamics, whether it was more challenges in terms of equal workloads, all sorts of things, right? And so we determined that, we've identified that there are people leaving the profession, and that is something we should take seriously, right? And we felt, our governing council, so our center is made up of 4 incredibly dedicated, incredibly talented staff members, 3 plus myself. I guess I don't know if I lump myself in there. But the three incredibly talented staff members and myself. And then we have basically a council of 20 volunteers who kind of guide our work and help determine what are we going to focus our resources and time and energy on. And that governing council felt by and large that keeping people in the profession was a really important thing. If we're serious about the future growth of the profession, then keeping talented people from leaving and finding other sectors is important and is really key. And especially for that early to mid-career professional, we want to find it. We believe that there are pathways to staying in the profession, and that it's important to find those pathways. And I think that's kind of the nexus of what led to the development of the Emerging Career Series and Toolkit. And what it is it's really a two-part web tool that we've developed. One is just simply a toolkit, right? And the toolkit itself is, here are the skills that lawyers who are thinking about different career paths should be focused on. And that may be project management. Here are some certifications or some courses on that might make sense to you. And also we include sample resumes. If you're looking at moving from being a traditional sort of, I say traditional in quotes, but the traditional partner track attorney, and suddenly you want to think about client design experience, right? How do you get there? What does that look like from a resume perspective? So we've built that toolkit out to provide those tools. We've done this in partnership with the American Bar Association Young Lawyers Division, because we know they also have the same degree of concern about entering the profession and keeping people in the profession. So we're very thrilled to work with them on that. And the second component of this is a series. We do a monthly sort of brown bag lunch series webinar, where we'll have 3 people with a specific job title. So on Friday, actually, on the 3rd, we'll be doing another event on this, and it's all going to be about legal knowledge managers. And we're going to be talking to 3 legal knowledge managers from different sectors. So we're going to be talking to someone from the large firm setting, someone from a smaller firm setting, and someone from the public interest sector, to kind of say, what are the roles that knowledge managers play in the day-to-day operations? And it's also important, I think, that we tell these stories, right? That we tell the stories of how someone who entered the profession thinking they were going to do one thing and they were maybe going to be a litigator, now finds themselves in a role where they're a legal futurist. Well, how does that transition happen? And how can you think about that, and how can you mirror it? So those are the kind of series, those are the kind of conversations that we're having in this series. And what I'm most amazed about is just that a lot of these journeys sound similar, right? There are a lot of similarities for a lot of people. And I'm sure, you and I have talked prior to this about our own backgrounds a little bit. And we're not following necessarily linear paths to these jobs, right? They're circular. They do this, they zigzag, and they're a little different. And that's okay, right? That
and it's
kind
normal.
Yes,
normal, and everybody has that.
And it's good because you're picking up skills that you might not otherwise have along the way, right? Like, I think when we think about what is a lawyer's skill set, we tend to be a little traditionalist in how we define it, right? We think about the things you learn in law school and sort of client experience and those sort of things. But what we don't think about are the things you do on a day-to-day basis. How do you interact with your clients? How do you counsel your clients through difficult situations? How do you provide basic information in a way that's digestible, right? How do you look at large troves of data in discovery and pick out the things that are going to be important and valuable to you? You're already building that skill set. And so it's important that that track's not linear, because you're picking up things along the way that are going to serve you down the road if you are somebody who's looking at some of these emerging pathways.
Definitely, definitely. Well, let's talk about legal design for a moment. I think that you have kind of touched upon it several times, but not maybe used the term legal design. But what's your approach, or what? And I was really happy when we were talking about this before, that legal design is very much on Bar Association's agenda. So I was happy to learn about that. So maybe you can tell something about that.
Absolutely. You know, we kind of think about it and in terms of what does the lawyer of the next century look like, right? What are the kind of skills that you're going to need, and how are you going to need to think about it? And obviously there are always going to be the traditional skills about how do you manage clients and how do you manage your workload, and how do you practice law, right? The really challenging things. But when we think about it from the legal design perspective, we kind of think about it from two basic points. How do we enable lawyers to practice at the highest end of their license, right? Meaning, how do we remove repetitive menial tasks from your day-to-day operations so that you can really excel at the things that you like to do, want to do, and frankly, are probably best at, right? So when we think about that perspective, we kind of want to create lawyers who are iterative, who think about things as a growing process, right? And who think about, okay, this is not static, but this is constantly changing. So that nimble mindset is key in that legal design idea. The other idea is that we really encourage to think about with a lot of our educational series that we do, is thinking about legal design from the client perspective. Right? Okay. So what, and this is applicable for big law. It's applicable for public interest. It's applicable for the solo GP firm down the street. It is applicable to anyone practicing in any space. What is it exactly that your clients want, and how can you deliver that most effectively and efficiently? Right. And that comes down to two basic other skill sets that I think are really important for lawyers. One is a kind of emotional intelligence, right? You can relate to your clients. You can relate to what you're going through, and you can identify, here are the things that are important to you. How can we work to provide those, right? What we know from the last 3 years of data that's come out from various ports, whether it's Clio Trends report or our own centers reporting or other places, is that, consumers kind of know what they want. They want legal services that are, and I'll approach this sort of from a small firm consumer mindset, but it's applicable across the board. Consumers know what they want. They want frictionless, right? They want experiences that are straightforward and easy. They want accessibility and information so that if they need something, they know that they're going to have somebody who's responsive to them. And they want, to generally speaking, have an experience that is consistent with what they would in other sectors, right? You buy your movie tickets on your phone. You buy everything short of cars on your phone, right? So legal services are no different, right? So what does that mean? Well, that means if you're sitting in a traditionalist model of asking a client to come into your office and sit down with you for a 30-minute consultation and bring their documents, then you're missing out on a large market share, right? That is not the experience they're going to think about. So from that design perspective, you need to build around your clients, right? You should build around your clients first from the outside in. Now, obviously, there's always going to be limitations to that, right? You can't be available at 3 a.m. every day for a client to call you on the phone. That's not always a practical solution. But there are technology tools that you can deploy to solve those problems for you, right? There are, one thing that I love. This is a sort of pet project for me and something I'm always interested in. And right now it's super popular is with ChatGPT and OpenAI and the idea of these chatbots. But there are plenty of attorneys who use really simple chatbot technology, whether it's something from LawDroid, which is a really fascinating company that's building some really cool tools, or whether it's something you build yourself. Chatbot technology is great because if someone comes onto your website at 3 a.m. because they're up at night concerned about their divorce, well, there's something there to kind of at least give a baseline of information. And now you as the attorney are kind of that trusted colleague. And all you did was create general information, right? The bot is not practicing law. It's providing the same general information you'd find on a website search, but it feels much more personal. It feels much more connected. And without having gotten out of bed yet, you've built lifetime value with the client, right? That's a really interesting and cool way to think about it. So the core of it is that iterative design built around what clients want and that emotional intelligence to kind of understand that need.
I love that you mentioned this emotional intelligence and also this customer experience, and not one single of those that you listed. What are the consumers expecting? Legal expertise is not on that list because that's not part of the experience. But that's when I work with law firms, they have so hard time to understand that legal expertise is the baseline, and then you start building the expertise on top of that.
Right. That always fascinated me because in my personal experience with a few different law firms I've worked at, and had the opportunity to kind of design some processes in these firms. Here's what I can tell you, like 9 out of 10 times. If you are in tune with your potential client, if you're sitting in an intake meeting and you're in tune with that person and you're listening and you're engaged, as long as you know the baseline of the law, you have a good chance that that client is going to build a relationship with you and trust you because that is what they're looking for. Legal expertise is a skill you will build and you will learn and you will hone over your entire profession. But a big part of meeting consumers where they are is being able to listen and understand and empathize and connect with them, right? And that's kind of a point where you'll get more clients there than you will at being the absolute, best at something. And when you're able to marry both of those together and really practice at the highest end of your license, that's when you're hitting law firm sustainability, right? That's where you're really clicking in those tools. One skill that we kind of talked about in the legal design mindset that we haven't really addressed as closely is also being iterative, right? I think that we are by our very nature a profession that identifies risk and avoids risk, right? We're big on risk avoidance. And that can really pose a challenge when you think about innovation, right? Because innovation by its definition is sometimes failure, right? You will do things that will not work.
If you have not failed, you have not been innovative.
Exactly, right? If you haven't failed in some way, chances are you've done something we've already been doing, right? Because it's a tried and true method. So that iterative mindset is also really, really, really important, right? It's also really key. And, on top of that, to drill down past that and really talk about kind of some of the skills that underlie legal design, there are certain things that you just want to learn how to do on a daily basis, right? Project management. You are not going to be the world's best project manager, nor should you necessarily go out and seek certification and do these things. But on a day-to-day basis, you want to think about project management and you want to think about the same skills that a project manager uses, including timeline management, including thinking about end products in terms of deliverable dates, right? That's something you're probably doing within, especially if you're a smaller firm. That's something that all of the attorneys at your firm are probably doing in sort of siloed capacities. Well, embrace that, open that up and engage that skill set, build it on a bigger level. And I think, the other part of it is, and I'm always cautious to equate technology and innovation. They are not the same, right? You can have technology that does something that we've been doing for 100 years, and you can have innovation that involves no technology whatsoever and simply involves a very small minor process tweak, right? These are not exclusive of one another, but they're also not the definition of each other. I think attorneys who are open to technology, but also are aware of its limitations, are kind of in the best place to excel by legal design, right? I we've all heard, especially in light of the Chat GPT stuff, and if you're in America, some of the other interesting things that have gone on with do not pay and robot lawyers and all these things. And there's plenty of conversations about, robots are going to end up practicing law, right? Look, AI is a tool. It is a tool just like any other technology, and it is a tool you ought to learn to use. I mean, slight distraction here, but when we talk about emerging careers in legal, in the last month, I have seen 2 job postings for prompt engineers at large firms. So this is
That's
happening,
so
right?
cool.
Right? Like this is very real. This is happening.
Talking about emerging careers.
Right. This one emerged before we started the series, and this one's emerged since. But yeah, we're seeing postings for prompt engineers, and these are the kind of things that lawyers need to be thinking about as technology grows and emerge. How do I best harness that? How do I engage with it? But also, how do I use it for myself, for my tools, for my practice, for my clients? Right? We experimented in the month of January. We let ChatGPT write chunks of our newsletter just to see what would happen. Our center's monthly newsletter, just to see what would happen. And, you got some interesting responses. Things were typically on par. I put something I wrote next to one that something ChatGPT wrote, and one of my colleagues referred to them as equally boring. So I don't know how to take that, right? Like that's either I write like an AI, like generative AI, or AI generative AI is designed to write like me. I don't know. But my point, and that was kind of a long way to get this point. My point is that, when we think about legal design, technology will be a key component, and lawyers who are able to harness that and think about that are really designed to excel in that space. But it's not going to replace your expertise, and it's not going to replace what you do and the value you provide to your client. But it is going to increase what that looks like, right? And from the perspective of consumer and small and GP firms, what practicing at the higher end of your license can potentially mean is you're serving more clients. You're able to build out one-to-many models that allows you to build a sustainable firm, to really have a good professional living, and at the same time, provide services to more consumers, which at the end of the day, at price points that are affordable to them. And at the end of the day, that is something we have to address in this profession, right? The idea that we've kind of got what my friend Natalie Knowlton refers to as an ice cream sandwich legal system, right? Where you have a top percent that is able to afford legal services and a bottom percent that qualifies. And this is an American model, but a bottom percent that qualifies for legal services and legal aid in America. And you've got a whole middle, and that middle includes small businesses. It includes,
we have the same.
Okay. It includes small businesses. It includes families. It includes, legal service problems that consumers might not even think of legal service problems, right? When we think of end of life and wills and estates and trusts, how many people are walking around without those issues squared away because they feel like it's an unaffordable or option that's not available to them, right? And so practicing at the high end of your license is going to enable the lawyer to really excel, but it's also going to improve consumer access. And at the end of the day, that's really pivotal to building a sustainable legal system, and for lawyers, a sustainable model. I mean, we will never create a legal system where lawyers don't work long hours, right? I fundamentally am a believer, and I'll go on record of saying, that's always been my opinion, right? Lawyers are always going to work. It's always going to be a job that has demands of your time and is going to be challenging. So take the things out of your day that distract you from doing that work at the highest level, right? Take out your intake triage process, take out your data metric analysis, right? Remove the things from your day that are challenging for you so that you're allowed to practice at that high end, because you're still going to work a lot. And maybe you can provide more legal services while doing it. And that's okay, right? That's a good thing.
Exactly.
And as we think about emerging careers, I'm going to circle it back here as we think about that in context of emerging careers and what these skill sets are, things like systems training, leadership training. If you're at a firm that offers you leadership training, take advantage of it, right? Look at those opportunities. If you are someone who is into research and evaluation tools, check out the ABA's Justice System Metrics tool that we run here at our center. It's all about building your own KPIs for success for your specific place where you're trying to innovate, right? Experiment, try it out, figure out what works and doesn't work. It is okay to say we're going to deploy this chatbot and we're going to see how the results go. And at the end of the day, if it's not building lifetime value for your clients, then great. Then it didn't work. That wasn't going to be something that fit within your model. Now right? There are so many cool law firms doing really cool things. We have 3 members of our governing council, Kim Bennett, Patrick Pallas, and Tom Rombach, who've all innovated in very different ways within their firms. And it's cool to see that innovation doesn't necessarily follow one track, right? Maybe you're somebody who's moving away from the billable hour to a subscription fee model. Maybe you're someone who is essentially able to provide legal information through a chatbot service, and you provide some generative AI and a voice that talks to consumers so it feels like a conversation, right? There's so many cool tools that you can use, and it's not one size fits all. Experiment with what works and what doesn't work. I tried a subscription model at my firm, total disaster, did not work whatsoever. 10 out of 10 would not have recommended to my partner at the time that we continue with it. But that's okay.
You wouldn't know if you don't try it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way of knowing.
And that identified for us, and this was one of those weird moments of awakening for me, where I was like, oh, we did this thing and it failed, and I'm okay with that. Like, that was like, oh, okay, that's an okay mindset. So
there's actually one question in the comments. Someone says that I'd like to hear a little about strategies for getting business buy-in and ways for ROI when pushing for legal innovation in a position outside of a management role or decision-making authority. I think this is a
really good question.
We can recognize this challenge.
Yeah, and this is a unique challenge. I have this conversation quite frequently. Selling technology to lawyers or selling innovation strategy to lawyers can always be a challenge, because we do tend to have sometimes a fixed or scarcity mindset, right? We tend to think of, okay, well, if I change this, then here's how this impacts me from a bottom level. What I think the highest level of engagement you can have with this starts by asking the questions of what is not working, right? Look at your process right now and tell me which part of it is not working, right? Instead of saying, here's how we do this and it's really effective and it does X, Y, Z, let's identify one thing in that process that is inefficient, or frankly speaking, not meeting clients' needs the way we want, or ineffective, right? Let's identify one specific thing that we can look at. From there, that's going to be illustrative from the perspective of, okay, this is what this firm values, or this is what is valued within this space. And of course, with most firms, especially in sort of the economic times we're in, that's going to be a financial component more times than it's not going to be, right? So if we're able to demonstrate that in the long run, this can save you X, Y, Z, well, then if that's the financial, if this firm is being motivated by a financial concern, then that's kind of a roadmap a little bit, right? That tells you where you're going. But I think it all does come back to trying to get, from a buy-in perspective, you want to identify where those weaknesses are, but you want that person to identify it for themselves, right? You want that firm to identify it in their own context, because if you're doing something and your firm is profitable and you're making money, you're not incentivized to change, right? You're not thinking about the problem in that way. And I think that's how a lot of firms approach it, right? Which is, this works, we do this, and it's effective. Okay, but where's the one friction point? What do the clients complain about? What is the concern that consumers have? When you have someone visiting your website looking for content, what is the thing that you can't provide them on the website that they need to call in for, right? Like, those are the kind of dynamics of looking for those friction points, but asking the potential partners or buyers to really think about, you identify the friction point. I can tell you all the things that I think you should adjust, but what would you do? And where is that point for you? Because solutions have to be built around the identification of the problem. I'm a firm believer that when we think about design thinking, if we have not fully identified the problem, and I don't mean like you as the consultant or I as sort of the outside eye, but if you internally haven't fully identified, articulated, and defined the problem, then what are you really solving for? Right?
Exactly.
Well, you're trying to find a solution that fits, but you don't really know what the fit is, right? And there are going to be plenty of firms or plenty of agencies that are not a product market fit, right? Like I always talk to legal technology companies about this. There's a really cool company that does essentially malpractice insurance, but it is malpractice insurance the same way you do your auto insurance, right? You do your quote over your phone and your app, and it's the whole thing. And they provide this from a malpractice perspective. And that's really interesting because a lot of malpractice insurance providers are still asking you to call in and go through these steps, right? And the challenge there is that, you know, this online tool is not going to be a product market fit for the attorney who wants to sit down and have a conversation and engage with this insurance person. But if it's someone who really wants to understand, like, what are my coverage options? How do I do this most effectively? And what do I value? Well, this is a great product market fit, right? So it really comes down to having lawyers identify that problem. I mean, if you are in charge of insurance for a large firm, that is a big job, right? That is a big job with a big undertaking. Now, do that on a smaller scale, it's still a big job, but now you're balancing it with all of the things we've talked about: client intake, client representation, being in court, answering your phone, all of the, the drafting, all the things you have to do. So that is a key component to think about in that context, right? Identify the problem, but work with the person that you're thinking about as a potential customer from a perspective of, you identify the problem. I know what I think is wrong. You tell me what you think is wrong.
That's a perfect advice. Start from the friction point, because if everybody's so comfortable with where they are, then they don't have the incentive to change anything. But there always are those friction points that you can start digging into.
You can always find them, right? And sometimes you don't even think about them. What's amazing to me is, just in our in our operational capacity here at the Center for Innovation, I've been doing our board meetings the same way for 3.5 years now, right? I've kind of been consistently running them the same way. And my project manager, after our last board meeting, came into my office and said, "Why do we do it this way?" And I said, "I don't know. That is a weird friction point. I haven't thought about that." And she made a suggestion and we tweaked it for the next meeting. And it was fantastic, right? It was a really great idea. So I didn't even see the issue until someone asked me, like, "Why do we do it this way? Have you noticed this?" And then it's like, oh, I get it now, right? So, even the innovators in us are susceptible to those blind spots.
Yes, definitely. Hey, I think we're reaching the end of our conversation, but I'd like to close this with asking, what are you currently working on, and where can people learn more about you? I think that we can share the link to that webinar on Friday to the comments, but what other information, or where can people learn more about you?
Yeah. So if you're interested in learning more about the ABA and our Center for Innovation, I would encourage you simply to head over to our website. You can just Google American Bar Association Center for Innovation, and you can see a really cool list of our projects and what we're doing. There's a couple things that I think, if you are in this space and what you think about, that you might get some real value out of. And one is we do an innovation trends report every year. It's released in August. It looks at, rather than kind of doing fine deep dives into data points, we do a lot of thought pieces around trends that we're seeing emerge. So we talk about trends in legal education, entryways to the profession, regulatory change that might be coming in different jurisdictions. And we do, of course, we will talk about technology. Technology and innovation are not synonymous, but they are friends. And we will talk about them closely. So please check out that trends report. I would also encourage, just generally, one of the big things that I'm a proponent for, and I think that this audience would get a big kick out of, is we do have a podcast called the Center for Innovation Network. We wrapped up season 2 in October, and we'll be launching, we wrapped up season 3 in October, and we'll be launching season 4 in April. And these are conversations where season 3 was all about mindset shift and finding people who have kind of found outside the box ways to improve access to consumer legal services. Next year, coming up in season 4, we are going to be talking to small firms who have found success through innovation. So we really want to do real examples of that. And that's going to launch in April. It's co-hosted by Patrick Pallas and Professor April Dawson, both members of our council. And we're so excited for those conversations to start kicking off. We're actually recording our first one on Friday. So I'm very excited.
So exciting, and also an opportunity to get real life examples and inspiration for anyone to continue the innovation in their own firms.
Yeah, I mean, I think, from my perspective, there is no teacher like watching people's success and failures, right? And so it is a really cool opportunity to really engage and to see that as a opportunity to learn from other people, right? Because people are innovating in ways I've never thought of, right? And in some ways, I kind of have to remind myself, I haven't been in a firm setting in 3 years now. So the things that have changed drastically, and I don't necessarily have that same visibility. So I love hearing these stories. And Patrick and April are really engaging hosts. So it's a great opportunity to learn and listen and frankly have some great conversations. So please check that out. And then the last thing I'll close with for everybody here is, if you are interested in learning more about your own ways to innovate and your own designs and sort of how you can build your own data set. If you are not a data analyst and you don't understand data and data all seems foreign to you, check out a tool we've built called the Justice System Metrics. This is it's a really cool web tool. It's got flipping cards, and it can help you kind of identify key performance indicators or data points that you might think. So if you're someone that thinks, how do I improve my client experience? Well, this is going to give you 5 or 6 related data points that you can start thinking about and measuring for and building for. So it's a really great starting point tool to think about any innovation project you might be thinking about. And it's open. It's free to the public. We are thrilled to keep it open and available to people. So.
Oh, perfect. Hey, thank you, Joey, so much for coming today and taking the time from your busy schedule. And thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. And have a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.